lawyer's perspective, from a legal perspective, is there any difference between Thug's plea and Gunna's plea? Not because you sat next to him 2 years. Is there a scenario where you as a lawyer say those two are the same things?
I became affiliated with YSL around 2016. Is that true as it pertains to you, Mr. Kitchens?
Yes, ma'am.
YSL is a music label and a gang, and you have personal knowledge that members or associates of YSL have committed crimes in furtherance of the gang.
Yes, ma'am.
Because he wouldn't sign off on all their little things, YSL as a gang and all this other business, he had to take that non-negotiated plea, right? The blind plea. He had to risk going to prison. He risked going to prison partially so he wouldn't have to sign off on all that stuff that would have hurt the other guys.
You're still taking a risk when you're doing this blind plea. Why not take the risk alongside Brian Steele?
Mr. Williams, do you understand that this is a non-negotiated plea of guilty, and that since your guilty plea is a blind plea or a non-negotiated plea, the state is making a recommendation of sentencing to the court?
We also have to examine the level of scrutiny Gunna has got, right? Gunna has gotten a certain level of scrutiny for pleading out in the same way that some people are saying that looks like Thug has now, for lack of a better term, played out in the same way. On day one, when you're in a scenario where you know the state is bringing in the lead witness, and we know it's Kenneth Copeland, it's Lil Woody, what is the vibe over there in y'all corner? Because we don't know. We talking about before we know his approach, what he's gonna say, how he's gonna do this. What is the vibe in that corner?
Do you want to be here?
I'm here.
Okay. Well, are you gonna let me ask you some questions?
Okay.
How old are you?
Grown.
Okay, what does grown mean?
I'm an adult.
Okay. And when you said you're an adult, what number in years are you?
I plead the fifth.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I get you to step outside to your headquarters of jury deliberation, please?
Did you see a difference between the way Woody handled you and your side versus how we handled the prosecution?
Tell you, there was a day they went in there and did some kind of dumbass raid, right, into the courtroom.
What?
Yeah, they did something like court's in session. All of a sudden, Judge Glanville calls a recess. He's like, we got to take a recess. And by the way, that day, tons of media were in the room.
Wanted to
they wanted Thug.
Yeah.
The target was Thug.
Yeah. So as the defense team over there for Yak Gotti, you don't see an issue with Gunna saying that this is a gang?
I'm not happy that he said it, but you know what? I can explain that to the jury. And his lawyer knows I can explain that to the jury.
You were present when law enforcement officers stopped a vehicle in which you were present along with Jeffrey Williams, wherein hydrocodone, methamphetamines, and a firearm were recovered. These items did not belong to you.
Yes, ma'am.
Let's start with the fact that we didn't have all the evidence 10 days before trial, like is a requirement. That's a requirement in Georgia law, and we're getting evidence 6 months in. We had a prosecutor, a lead prosecutor, that was lying to the court. And you know what? She can come after me. Come on after me.
Yeah.
But she was lying to the court.
Have you reaped any benefits from being so visible with the trial? I mean, I know you already a married man and things.
Reaped any benefits?
Like that means brands, followers, endorsements, clients.
Yeah, I got clients from it.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I got clients from it.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
That's good.
Yeah. Nah, it's better than... I would think your visibility... Do you know what to do with visibility, though? That's the thing.
I don't know. You know, I'm trying to do good and make money, right? So are we on now? Are we talking?
Wrong.
Cool, okay.
Wrong. Yeah.
Just wanted to know.
Yeah, I'll let you know.
No, because, like, I'm pushing for, like, the Rap Act in a bunch of states to try to limit when lyrics can come in against folks.
Right.
So use it for that. And then I'm trying to draw attention to how messed up Rice Street is.
Yeah,
you know?
but I think a lot of people, they've been complaining about this shit for years. I know about that, and I ain't even from here.
I know, for years and years, but that doesn't mean we should stop complaining.
That's a fact. But your resources can be utilized in a better place.
Well, we'll see.
Your visibility. I don't know. I mean, I don't say it's not worth doing, but I'm just saying sometimes it's corruption on top of corruption on top of corruption and bureaucracy, and you just can't get through to the people.
Yeah, you know, you got all these little fiefdoms in Fulton County. You got the Fulton County Commission. You got the sheriff's office. You got the DA. You kind of, in a way, you got the courts, and they're all tussling with each other.
Right.
And that's kind of what's going on in some of this, right?
Right.
But
100%.
that doesn't mean it. I think people forget they're human beings locked up over in Rice Street.
Yes.
And honestly, like before I started doing this criminal law, I didn't think about it much.
Right.
I didn't think. No, people don't think about it.
Nah.
But you know, the problem with Rice Street, that's the citizens of Fulton County. It's on them. They need to pressure the commissioners to get their act together, put some money into that place, fix it. It's not so much on the sheriff.
Right.
I mean, honestly, but the citizens and the Fulton County Commission, they need to get their damn.
Do
act
they
together.
even know that? But I guess
No,
the public,
they don't know.
They
But
don't
I
know
try
the
to let
power.
people know.
Right, and
I
that's
mean, I
why
try to
we'll
let
talk
people
about
know.
it today.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I'm sure the people on Cleveland Avenue know about it.
Right.
But the people up in Dunwoody, Sandy Springs,
Right.
you know, Buckhead, do they know or care?
Right.
I don't think so.
Facts,
and you
right.
know what the sad part is? You know what it's going to take to fix Rice Street?
What's that?
This is pitiful, but this is what it's going to take. You're going to need some 50-year-old, 45-year-old white guy from Buckhead to get killed in Rice Street before you see action. And that's a shame.
Yes,
The
but
world shouldn't work that way.
it's unfortunate, but
Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah.
Yo, welcome to It's Up There podcast. I am your active and attractive host for another episode. I got someone that I really was looking forward to speaking to. Someone that put on a clinic, if you ask me, in the longest trial in USA history. We got Doug Weinstein. How are you, brother?
I'm doing great, and thank you for having me. I wouldn't say it was a clinic. I would say we had a great team in there.
Right.
And we all worked together really well.
But if we and if you can't get this closer to you,
I can do that. Go
yeah,
ahead.
but if we're being honest, right? I was looking over some clips.
Yeah.
When you needed to be very direct, you were very direct. I remember one time when you stood up and wanted a mistrial, and you said, "You cannot fix this."
Yeah. I moved for a mistrial. This absolutely cannot be unheard by the jury. It was heard clear as day in his deep, sonorous voice. They have heard it. They have absorbed it. It cannot be fixed.
If you can just give us an opportunity just to look at some case law just to see if we can.
Your Honor, I'm sorry. How many times has this man testified in a trial? How long has he been I know he's a retired investigator. How long has he been an investigator? He knows he is not supposed to say that, Your Honor.
I would find it.
These kind of terminology and words are very direct, and someone like yourself knows how to position yourself in that way. So, I mean, I would say that's a clinic if you ask me.
Well, thank you. That's kind to say. But I really did want to explain to the judge that we were in a situation that honestly she couldn't fix. I think she did her best to try. Let's give her some credit for that.
Right.
But I don't think she could fix it. The jury ended up fixing it. That's what happened.
Right.
And God bless them for doing that.
Facts. You know, I think, but just that terminology was so important, right? You can cut the tension in the building, right? It was just, Your Honor, I need to, and then you get up and you say, listen, this is, basically, we've had enough at this point.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right.
You know, all of these different things are taking place. You cannot, you understand you understand, but the viewing public may not understand that positioning from a lawyer to a judge.
Yeah.
You cannot fix this.
Right. There's times for big, fancy, eloquent language, but then you can use some of that. But then sometimes short, sweet, direct, there's always a place for that, and you have to know when to use it. But another example of that is I was thinking about this the other day. Someone asked me what was one of your favorite moments in trial. And it was when I was explaining to the judge Judge Whitaker, how with Judge Glanville before, I was complaining about all this late evidence that was coming in. 6 months into trial, we're seeing stuff for the first time. And I complained to Judge Glanville, and Judge Glanville said, well, if this was a civil trial, I would keep it out. And I told Judge Whitaker, can you imagine that? If it's a civil trial when it's about money, he keep it out. When it's men's lives on the line, he lets it in.
Wow.
And I said to Judge, how do I explain that to my client?
Right.
How do I explain that to Diamante?
Right. And what was his response? I don't remember that.
Whitaker. She had a very heartfelt response. She said, I don't know what you say to your client.
Right. And
I don't know what you say.
Right. And we'll get to Whitaker, and we'll also get to Glanville, because there's so much to unpack, bro. It's just, there's been so much happening. But I want to start with, my research tells me that this is your first criminal trial.
Yeah, that was my first criminal trial. I'd been in a number of trials, but they were always civil. They were always federal, not state. So this was my first criminal trial and my first jury trial.
With going through both of those, what do you see as the difference? What's the distinct difference of those?
You know, I think the biggest, it's hard to say because YSL was such a crazy trial. It wasn't a normal trial. Like next week I'll be in a normal trial.
Right.
And after next week, maybe I can tell you the difference.
Right.
Because all I've seen is an insane criminal trial.
Yeah, the highest level.
Just crazy stuff. But I will say this. I think the criminal trials are a little more like the Wild West than civil trials are in federal court.
Yeah.
Which are very, very orchestrated waltzes, right? I'm always telling people, trial isn't like you see in the movies. Even criminal trial, it's not like what you see in the movies. It's a very orchestrated presentation.
Yes.
So that's kind of one of the biggest differences.
But how do you explain YSL trial? Because for all intensive purposes, people will say, yo, this is like the movies.
I know it was like the movies,
Yeah,
right? But it's not supposed to be.
Right.
That's the whole thing. It's not supposed to be like the movies.
Bro, we see them bend this thing. This justice system is in a very weird place, man.
You know, I would like to think, and I'm going to withhold judgment here, right? I would like to think that YSL trial was an anomaly, was an exception. And I, given the parts of other trials I've seen, I kind of think it was an exception in a lot of ways. But
no. It was an exception as far as visibility, but not as far as treatment.
Well, I don't know that. I'm going to wait and see. I'm going to withhold judgment.
Tell me, what do you think was? Because you in the room with some people that's been through some things.
That's right.
So tell me what you think is an anomaly for the YSL trial.
Well, I'll tell you what's different in the YSL trial. So much. I don't even know where to begin. Let's start with the fact that we didn't have all the evidence 10 days before trial, like is a requirement. That's a requirement in Georgia law. And we're getting evidence 6 months in. We had a lead prosecutor, that was lying to the court. And you know what? She can come after me. Come on after me.
Yeah.
But she was lying to the court. We had a lead prosecutor that was lying about the law, lying about what the defense attorneys had done, accusing Brian Steele of altering evidence.
Right.
I mean, I could probably sit here for an hour and tell you how nuts this trial was.
You know, but I think if the longer you do criminal trials, you'll see that, oh, this is a little bit more normal than I thought. Maybe not 10 for 10, right? But because we look at ASAP Rocky's trial with them being in a scenario where the whole defense is he had a starter pistol, and then literally on opening day they show up with ballistic evidence.
I know.
So again, these are the games that's being played across this nation.
That definitely was some gamesmanship there. Now you saw right in the what's the actor's name that was out in
what's it, Johnny Depp?
No, the one that was in like 30 Rock and Hunt for Red October, and he's got all the Baldwin, the Alec Baldwin trial.
Yes,
in the Alec Baldwin trial, the prosecutors tried to do some nonsense, and the judge wasn't having any of it.
That's what
Basically
I'm telling you.
Threw that out.
So here's 3 for 3.
Yeah,
you're gonna have to give me a trial where it didn't happen at this point, because we're looking at 3 for 3, saying, "Yo, all right, there's Alec Baldwin. They tried it, but it didn't work. So they're trying it. And if you don't got the visibility and the money and the equity that your team had, because not only you, but Steele has a certain equity in Georgia that needs to be respected and will be respected."
Yeah. Well, I still maintain, and it would cost almost nothing.
Right.
Every trial should be streamed. It doesn't cost anything
That's a fact.
to put a camera in the courtroom and get a YouTube channel and stream that trial. And it would bring light on everything. And I think it would just be a great thing. Now, we have judges in Fulton County that stream their trials. They stream their courtroom
every time.
All the time.
Yes.
So we have some judges that do that. But we need to do it not just in the state courts, but in the federal courts, all that. Trials are supposed to be public, and they are public. You can walk in and watch a trial, right? But these days, public doesn't mean what it meant 250 years ago.
Yes.
I think Bruce Harvey's with me on this, although I don't want to speak for Bruce. If you want a public trial, that trial needs to be televised a lot of the time.
Yes.
It really does.
That's the only way you can make sure that it's fair. You keep it honest.
Yeah.
Because again, and if we're being real, it doesn't necessarily always even work for the defendant, because sometimes you get to see things that don't go in his favor, but it still is the truth.
Let's get the truth. Let's get the truth out there. And so every time the state would try to not show a witness, unless they had a great reason, I would object. So, you know, for example, state didn't want to show Gaither, right? A major witness in this case.
Right.
They didn't want to show Gaither. Gaither is like a rash all over the internet. The Hawks are promoting her image is out there.
Yes.
She was on First 48, First 24, whatever it's called, that investigative.
First 48.
First 48. She's
48.
on First 48 episode after episode. So her identity was known. There was no reason not to show her.
Right.
So, you know, what's the only reason not to show that? I can't think of one.
Right.
You know, if she wants to get on, it's what I said earlier in the case to Judge Glanville. If someone wants to get on that stand and tell lies about my client, I want them to have to look my client in the eyes. That's why we were up front. I want them to have to look my client in the eyes while they lie on them.
Right.
And I want a camera on them because I want the public to see what they're saying.
Right. And I like that dog in you, though. I like that dog in you.
I have a little bit of that.
Yeah, and I think you got a little bit of live wire about you too. Like it's like this little, like he'll say it, bro. He's not gonna let you just walk over him. And for me, I respect that, and I think in courtrooms that's needed.
Well, look, we were talking a little bit earlier about, is this trial coming up, a big trial that I have next week? It's a huge trial for my client.
Yes.
It's the biggest trial in the world.
Right.
So that man sitting next to me, or woman, I mean, it's everything to them.
Right.
And if you want to put that man in prison or that woman in prison, you're going to have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. And if you want to put witnesses on the stand, they should have to look them in the face.
Right.
That's the law.
If you were my lawyer, right, and we had a relationship, I'm telling you this, and I don't feel like, you know, I don't sugarcoat. I don't have a reason to. And it costs me nothing, right?
Yeah.
Nothing, right? So, but if you were my lawyer, I wonder if Yak Gotti was sleeping like, you know, he was probably sleeping as good as Thug, like thinking like, yo, I got a guy out there that's really working on my behalf that want me out and is going to try to prove himself or prove my innocence. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's just you against the numbers. You pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stats projections, like you'll pick Patrick Mahomes for up to 2 passing touchdowns or Saquon Barkley for more than 60 yards, and you watch the winnings roll in. I've been using Prize Picks, and it's just so simple. I can make my picks and submit an entry in less than 60 seconds. That's just 1 minute. And the withdrawals, it makes the experience even better. After you win, you definitely don't want to wait. And don't miss out on Taco Tuesdays. That's where selected player projections are discounted up to 25%. Go to prizepicks.com, use my code IUTP to receive a guaranteed $50 when you play just $5. Again, that's prizepicks.com, my code IUTP. If you support the show, sign up for Prize Picks, use my code, and watch the winnings roll in. This is daily fantasy sports made easy. Salute to Prize Picks for supporting the movement, and let's get back to the episode. Like, yo, I got a guy out there that's really working on my behalf that want me out and is going to try to prove himself or prove my innocence.
I hope so. You know, I had to prove that up to him because I'm not the lawyer he hired. The lawyer he hired was my boss, Jay Apps.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so when it was me that was kind of appearing there all the time, I had to prove myself to him.
I didn't know
and
that.
I had to earn his trust and earn his respect. I think I did that over time. You know, Yak Diamante, he's a smart guy. So getting him involved in the trial, getting his input, that was really helpful. Now, did he sleep well? I mean, we had a chance. We could have pled out. I took an offer to him because I'm required to do that from the state.
Right.
I think about 15, 16 years to serve. I can't remember exactly. And he's like, no way. I didn't do this crap. I didn't do this. We're going to take it to the jury. Take it to trial. We're going to take it to the jury.
Yeah.
We're going to see what they say. I trust you, man.
Yeah.
I trust you. We're going to take it. We're going to go all the way.
But let's back up some.
Yeah.
So your boss didn't show up for this very prestigious case with this level of visibility. Why?
No, I wouldn't put it that way. We were kind of all working on the case together. And at the beginning, we would kind of take turns in court. But it came to the point where pretty early on in the trial that I really asked to kind of be the one in court day to day, because I'm just
wondering, is he older? Is he?
No, he's younger than me. He was there. He's got a really good cross that you can see, I think, around October.
Okay.
But he was there from time to time, and then there was someone else, Katie Hingerty. So the three of us all worked together.
Okay.
We were all in that trial.
Right.
So you're probably going to get to it, but like in my motion, not my motion, but when I tried to get Glanville recused,
we're gonna
and
get
I
to
went
that.
to the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Katie Hingerty helped me write that brief.
And I
so
imagine
we were all
that.
working on stuff
Right,
together.
I imagine that. I'm just wondering if Yak hires this guy, and it's a level of clout attached to this. This is YSL case.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? And Yak reaching for you, and it's like, I'm gonna pass it, or we gonna decide to put you in the forefront.
Yeah.
And you prove yourself.
And I couldn't have done it without his support. Right. I'm not gonna go in there and say, I'm taking over, you're just stuck with me.
Right.
But I think I just showed him a knowledge of the case and demonstrated, what it was more than anything? I think just showing him that I cared, showing him that I had heart,
That's how
and that I was going to work my
bro.
tail off to get him out of there. And I don't have as much experience as these other, at least in criminal, as these other guys in the courtroom. I mean, I've been in a courtroom almost 30 years, but I don't have as much experience as these other guys. But I think he saw, and I'm not bragging, I'm just telling the truth.
Tell your truth,
I developed
King.
a relationship with him.
Yeah, for sure.
And it would have torn me up inside to see him found guilty on any of those counts and go to prison. I'm not happy right now with him sitting in jail.
Right. What's his status right now?
Well, he had 3 things he was dealing with, right? He had a probation revocation, which is the reason he couldn't get bond earlier. And he's got one case that's an aggravated assault, right in a penal institution. That's worse than it sounds. Or it sounds worse than it is.
Yeah.
He's got that ag assault riot in a penal institution from a fight that was in the jail. And then he had some contraband allegedly in a cell.
Okay.
So he's got those 2 cases, but I'm pretty sure he's going to end up getting bonded out. I don't know when, but I would imagine he's going to get bonded out soon.
Right. So let me ask you.
Oh, and the probation revocation is gone. They withdrew that.
Okay, cool.
That's huge, by the way.
Right.
Huge.
Yeah, because that'll keep you in
Bruce
there.
Harvey and Nicole got that
Took
taken care of.
Yeah, for sure. Shout
They
out
did
to
an
them.
awesome job.
Yeah. So with the case, the Young Thug YSL trial, it was a 56 count racketeering indictment.
It was.
If you had to give a grade on what the prosecution did, or a number, grading scale number 1 to 10, what would you give them?
You mean on the quality of
how they presented,
how they
that
did their case?
Yes.
I would give them like a 3. I would say on a 1 to 10.
Right.
And again, that's because of the lead prosecutor, not because of the people under her. I think
Now,
they're all
is the
great
lead
attorneys.
prosecutor Fannie Willis or
No,
Love?
Adrian Love.
Okay.
Adrian Love. I really would chalk it up to her and the way she chose to run this case and present her case. But I think the other prosecutors around her are almost universally good prosecutors.
Have you ever did prosecution?
I have not.
Yeah.
So maybe when people could say, I'm sure if Miss Love is looking at this right now, she'd say, I'm not qualified to render an opinion, but I watched her for 2 years. So I
pinned you to the mat, basically. We beat that what you done. So, you know what I'm saying? I mean, with all due respect, like what y'all presented, we ended up on,
I mean, you lost to a rookie.
So
that's the truth.
That is the actual truth. So how do you prepare for a trial of this magnitude? Because this is crossing over with traditional litigation and now digital evidence. Well, this is kind of one of the first times you had to mesh those 2 things together.
It's very interesting you say that because we had 6 terabytes. 6 terabytes. Now, and I don't have the resources of Thug and Brian Steele. I don't have a whole team of people that can comb through that. What was very helpful for me is being as old as I am And I'll tell you why. Because I'm an old software EE guy. I'm an electrical engineer and software guy. And back in the 70s and early 80s, there was this piece of software called Unix. And it has this very complicated tool in it called grep. I'm getting really technical now. But anyway, if you're as old as I am and are a software guy, you can use this super powerful but kind of clunky tool to go through all the discovery and find the most important part. By
text or
words, texts, and try to get a lot of that. So I did a lot of that to try to find stuff. You know, Mr. Kokomo, Shaquille Kokomo, Shaq.
Yes.
He was really great at doing like media searches for things. He had some skills in that.
Which, when you say media searches, is that
well,
Google, YouTube?
Well, you know what this trial was streamed, right? So every day was on YouTube.
Yes.
And there's a log of that.
Yes.
So when we needed to find, hey, I think some
She
witness at this point said this, man, Shaq would be right on that. And he'd say, it was day 101 at this time, and here's the clip.
Yeah.
And, oh, that was useful.
Yeah.
But it's a ton of work to get ready for this. And you know who did the most work of any single individual? Max Shart. Max Shart worked his ass off.
He was a dog in there too.
Oh,
that's what I'm
great.
saying. Y'all together look good in there, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I was in Max's like slipstream right there behind him, but he was great.
Yeah, he would always. And what I like about him too is that when he's doing the arguments, when he's positioning his arguments, he's never stuttering. I like when people are smooth like that, where it's never like I'm tripping over my words and things, right? He presented his arguments great every time.
That's because he had, of any attorney in that room, now we were all prepared, but as far as absolute command of all the facts at his fingertips, I don't know that anyone had more than Max.
Yeah.
Brian would be a close second.
Yeah.
But Max, man, he had it all up here.
Yeah. Brian resources is
Brian had killer resources.
Yeah. You playing with a dog with Brian.
Yeah, but Max did all that pretty much on his own, and maybe some help from Shaq. So.
Right. I want to ask about let me see. Oh, it says, okay, let's talk about this.
Okay.
So one day in court, there was an alleged drug transaction. What was going on that day? Do you remember that day in court?
You know, it was early on. I think maybe we're still in. I don't even remember if the trial had started. If we were still in jury. So I guess the trial. I don't even remember. It was before, I think it was early in the morning. I think it was before court, and there was an alleged handoff from one defendant to another.
Right.
I don't know what was up with that.
Yeah.
I don't even know if the person receiving it had any idea what was being put into his hand.
What happens with stuff like that? Do it just go away? If someone end up charged, do they roll it up in the situation that's going on?
A lot of times you can, in Fulton County, a lot of times you can end up charged.
Yeah.
I think allegedly it was Thug that received that, but I don't think he picked up a charge from that.
Right, yeah. I always wonder what they do. Like, how do they respond to that, or how do they handle something like that? Because I don't think you can charge him, but I was just, it felt like they were reaching for straws at that point. So you would think they would try to position that and use that some kind of way. Unfortunately or fortunately, they didn't do that.
I know they were going after the guys any which way they could.
Exactly.
And so if he didn't pick up and I don't think he picked up a charge, which is the right thing to do.
Right,
but they don't always do the right thing.
Right,
so.
Yes, 100%. And also, you know, if you ever been in jail or, you know, around some of those guys who live that rock star lifestyle, bro, that first 90 days, 120 days, 6 months is hard coming down off them drugs or trying to, like, your body is doing a certain kind of fiend for that shit.
Yeah.
That you'll go through hell. There was a lot of that shit in the trial where they alleged that, you know, hey, this person's trying to do that. Did they ever come at you with that?
The only thing they came at me with was one time, I guess a girl was getting some clothes to Diamante, and it had to come through the lawyer, and she like gave the clothes to Miss Tasha, Diamante's mom. Miss Tasha gave the clothes to me. I gave the clothes, I guess, to a deputy, and it turned out, allegedly, there was like contraband. And they made a huge deal about it. Contraband. It makes it sound like a knife or a gun slipped into the courtroom.
Yeah.
You know what the contraband was?
What?
rolling papers and tobacco.
Wow.
But they don't say that.
Yeah.
They say contraband.
Wow.
Like these are like Al Capone in there.
Yeah,
you know
that's
what I mean?
crazy.
So, I mean, it's not supposed to be in there.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about it. Miss
Right.
Tasha didn't know anything about it.
Right.
It ended up going away.
Right.
I think Kayla Bumpus helped Miss Tasha out with that. But they kind of came at the attorneys lots. I mean, they came at one attorney for having his like ADHD pills that weren't in the prescription bottle.
That's what I was asking.
That
Like,
was some
were they
bullshit, if I
being
can
like?
say that
no,
on
yeah,
your
you
show.
can say what you say, whatever, bro. So that's what I was asking. I would wonder, would they be like overzealous as far as?
You know, there was kind of at the beginning of this trial. Okay, we had the Scorpions in the room with us as, I don't know what you want to call them, guards or whatever,
Yes.
courtroom security. Those guys, you know, they're all swatted up in all their black outfits. And I mean, they're just like a modern day, Scorpions are just like a modern day version of Red Dog,
Yeah.
if you remember that
Yeah.
from Atlanta
Yeah.
back in the
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
And these Scorpions were nothing but trouble. And that was for the first few months of the trial. But as soon as those guys went away and we had regular deputies in there, and I know it sounds kind of odd, but we all developed a very good relationship with each other, and everything was cool and things settled down.
Yeah.
But there was a time at the beginning where we had,
They thought it was going to be an all-out war or something.
I don't know what
Like,
they thought was
would-
going to happen. I don't know
Yeah.
if they thought somebody was going to come in there and break them out.
Yeah, it's not.
I don't
that's
know
not
what they're
happening.
thinking, but it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
And it gave the public the wrong impression of these
Yes.
guys. So you know what it was about, right?
Right.
What was it about? You can tell me
Media,
or I'll tell you.
propaganda,
Media.
yeah.
I'll tell you, there was a day they went in there and did some kind of dumbass raid, right, into the courtroom.
What?
Yeah, they did something like court's in session. All of a sudden, Judge Glanville calls a recess. He's like, we got to take a recess. And by the way, that day, tons of media were in the room, and they hadn't been there before,
So-
right? Because it wasn't the beginning of the trial. It was a couple of months in, right?
Yeah,
in jury
sounds
selection.
smelling fishy.
Somebody tipped, I know for a fact, because I
Yeah.
heard it. They tipped off the media. They said, hey, something's going to happen today. They got all the media in there. Then they do some raid. I don't even remember what they found. But
Wow.
basically they shook us all down.
Yeah.
It was crazy. And
The lawyers and everybody. What about the prosecution team?
They kind of left the lawyers alone, but they were messing with our clients. And again, all for the press. Because this whole thing, if you saw Madam DA Fonnie Willis's initial press conference, she acted like she rounded up the most dangerous criminals in all of Atlanta. They're responsible for 80% of the crime and all that stuff. She started off with that press conference.
Yeah.
People ask me, why are you always going on social media talking about the trial, talking about Diamante? They tried to shut me up, if you remember.
Did they?
Oh yeah, they filed a motion to shut me up.
I don't remember
They
that.
did. I fought back.
Yeah.
They didn't do
so
it.
they tried to put what's they called?
Gag order.
Gag order.
They tried to
on
put
you.
a gag order on me, but Judge Whitaker wasn't having it.
Right.
But my point is, they do all this: the big press conference, the media
meeting with the
show,
press, the news,
all that stuff. Right? They do that show. My client can't afford to have a press team out there. All he has to speak to the public is me.
Yeah.
They're out there trying to destroy his reputation.
Right.
So you're not going to do that to Diamante. That's not just my client. That's my friend. That's family at this point.
Yeah.
And maybe I shouldn't be that close to him, but you can't help it over
Right.
that length. And I wasn't going to let that happen. I just wasn't going to let that happen.
Nah, I think it, they started it on social media. She brought it to social media, like you say, with a grandiose announcement
Yeah.
that I went and got Pablo Escobar, King Slime, hiding in the
Yeah.
shadows. I remember all of that,
remember
man. When
that?
they were
Yeah.
saying that man is hiding in the shadows, he is the puppet master. And
Well,
all
they
of
said
that.
he was like the wolf, the leader of a wolf pack,
Boy,
right?
They said it's so hardcore. I said that sounded like the opening of a book.
Yeah, they
Like-
pulled that out of Jungle Book, man. Rudyard Kipling. I mean, I like Rudyard Kipling. You go to the best,
Yeah.
so they pulled.
Yeah,
I
they
like
pulled
that
out all the
reference, but
stops, man.
You know what? They cited Rudyard Kipling. I cited Killer Mike.
Yes. You would, we're going to get to your closing arguments, your opening stuff. Like I say, I think you pulled from culture and you intertwined it. What I find interesting about Thug is that his fame and his music and shit is you can't separate it almost. I always felt that would be a challenge for Brian Steele because people that see him see the rapper Young Thug. They don't see Jeffrey
Yeah.
with the children, with
Yeah.
the, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. I told Young, I always call him Jeffrey. I told Jeffrey at the end, I said, this trial's been an awful experience for you, right? I mean, you've been locked up in macabre. It's not good. Away from your family. I said, but if there's any good thing about this trial, it brought to light all the good that you do in that community that you kind of keep on the lowdown. You don't let everybody know about all the stuff you're doing.
Yeah.
And it's awful that you've been through this, but people can see you reached into Cleveland Avenue and you tried to pull people up. You didn't cut people off.
Yeah.
You're like, look, stop doing the crap you're doing. Come with me. I'll give you some work. Go on the road. You do this legit stuff. And some of them took it, like Diamante, Yak Gotti.
Yeah.
He took it.
Yeah.
Made a name worked his ass off to get a name for himself. And there's others that came up there. You heard some testimony.
Yeah.
He gave me a chance. I screwed up on the road. He sent me home.
Right.
But he didn't forget the people.
Yeah,
and not forgetting the people, that I don't think he'd be in this boat if it wasn't for that. It cost him.
It cost him. That's the thing. Like when they tell you everybody can't go, and I'm sure now he looks at it because, I always felt like, what does he feel like as they walk his homeboy after his next homeboy? They walking these dudes down, putting them on the stand.
Yeah.
So my question to you is, Lil Woody, the inconsistencies of Lil Woody, but I want to back some.
Mm-hmm.
On day one, when you're in a scenario where the state is bringing in the lead witness, and we know it's Kenneth Copeland, it's Lil Woody. What is the vibe over there in y'all corner? Because we don't know. We talking about before we know his approach, what he's gonna say, how he's gonna do this. What is the vibe in that corner over there?
I'll tell you, I had been preparing. You asked about preparation. Oh my gosh, I had been preparing for Lil Woody since day one. Max, Brian, we're all ready for Lil Woody. Oh man, did I have a cross-examination written out for Lil Woody?
Yeah.
So, I was ready for him. I didn't know what he'd be like. Here's what I knew about Lil Woody. I knew what I saw in those police interrogations. I knew what Diamante told me. So, I didn't know what I was going to get on the stand with Lil Woody.
Right.
I didn't know it. But I can tell you this, and people probably understand, I had to throw that whole cross-examination out. Because his testimony on the stand, that truthful testimony, that was great.
Right.
That was great.
But it's it felt like, because from y'all standpoint, you would be like, yo, I even want to ask Thug, like, what did he feel like with them walking this nigga down that he been around me? This dude been around me, right? Not saying that we've done anything, but I'm just saying he can get up here and nail me. He can lie on me in a way that really affects my life for the rest of my life.
He could, but you know what? If you thought, if he gets up there and just tells the truth, I'm golden.
Right, but who thinks that when he been lying in the fucking interrogation room? He been lying all this time, and so as Thug, I'm probably sitting there like, what is he finna do?
Yeah, I didn't ask him what he was feeling,
but
I'm not going to tell you what Diamante was thinking because that's private between us.
Right.
But
I want to know
tense.
what y'all. It was tense. Yeah,
it was tense.
But when he gets on the stand, right, and then he says, they say, how old are you? And he say, I'm grown.
Yeah.
And they say, well, how old is that? And he said, I'm an adult.
Yeah.
And they say, sir, how many? And he say, I plead the fifth in front of the jury. What does that moment do in your corner?
Boy, the tension there. You talk about trials aren't supposed to be like a movie, but this one was. It was something else because you could see how Judge Glanville was upset. We were upset, especially later on, because we learned that the prosecutors knew he was going to take the fifth. And let me tell you something. If you know a witness is going to take the fifth, you don't put him on the stand.
Right.
That's the rule.
Right.
So
especially in front of the jury.
No, not in front of the jury. And that's what I meant. Not in front of the jury if you know they're going to take the fifth.
Right.
So we were upset with the prosecutors. You could see Judge was upset with Lil Woody for doing that. And, locked that man up over the weekend in terrible conditions, by the way.
Yeah. They on purpose.
I would say on purpose.
And that's what I mean about them, like, as a lawyer, I want to know how you guys are, like, what are those hallway meetings about? Like, soon as after, boom, Woody does this, we head out in the hallway for whatever reason.
Yeah.
What is that like? What are we saying? How are we feeling? Like, this dude is called by the state, but some people can argue that he's not representing the state in a good way.
But when he takes the fifth like that on the stand in front of the jury, I don't think it's good for us as the defendants, because it makes it look like maybe he's afraid to testify against. I don't know what they're going to think from that.
Exactly.
You know,
it's the unknown.
That's like with a lot of these witnesses, one of the themes of the prosecutors, because all these witnesses went south on the prosecution, right? They got up there and told the truth, which hurt the state's case but helped us. And every time, what would the prosecution come back to? It was, well, when these guys weren't around, you said this, that, and the other, meaning like you're afraid of these guys.
Right. Yes.
So that's why on cross-examination, we would point out, you're not afraid of these guys. Who are the only people that can lock you up? They're sitting at that table over there.
Exactly.
It's the state.
Exactly.
And despite their ability to do that, you get on the stand and tell the truth, and you risk that. So you see like Monk Tunk, right? Monk Tunk's doing 5 years.
He still went to jail. This is what I've been noticing. Like, I interviewed Birdman brother. He told he was a snitch. And so I interviewed him and I asked him about, because I want people to know, if you first of all, I want people to know the streets don't pay nothing. It's dead. Ain't no value in the streets. That's the first thing I want people to know. Number two, I want them to know when these old niggas come home, they broke. They playing. I don't want to hear no fake like they broke. They struggling. They need help. They need some money. The streets don't pay.
Yeah.
I don't care what these niggas come at, right?
Yeah.
If you, whatever you doing, do it, get out of it, but don't land in the street. So I interviewed Birdman brother, who was a known informant. He did the 5K1.
Okay.
Out of the feds. And so, I'm kind of grilling him about what he's, why he did what he did and how he did it. So what was interesting to me is that I'm finding out that a lot of these guys are telling and not getting time took off their shit.
Yeah.
So I don't know what kind of like deals these dudes are making, but they're literally giving information and still going to jail.
Yeah.
The Moontoon dude got on the stand.
Yeah.
He tried not to do a whole lot, but he did enough to validate certain things or allege certain things, right? True or untrue. He alleged certain things that would hurt the case, and then still went to jail.
Yeah, I'm sure your people that listen to this and watch this know how this works,
Yes.
how this game is played. But we need to make sure the jury understood.
Exactly.
Because not all of them are going to know, right? Because they don't have all the same background and everything. So they're locked up in Rice Street. And at that point, they're locked up since May. It's like December now. So they're locked up there for 7 months. Christmas is a week away. And they go to them and they say, you sign this paper, which we're going to write. The prosecutor's going to write it. We're going to write all this stuff, all this crap. And all you have to do is initial this and sign this paper, and you go home. You go home.
It's dangling your freedom in your face.
And if you don't want to sign it, well, you can just stay locked up in Rice Street for God knows how long,
right?
Because we're going to drag this trial out forever. And given that choice, I don't blame they call them snitches. I don't blame any one of those people for signing that paper to get home to their dying mom, to get home to their kids so they can take care of their families. I mean, that is a rational choice that makes sense. And I'm not going to blame those people for it. And I'll give them credit that when they took the stand, they didn't repeat those lies. They got up on the stand and they told the truth. That's why I think it's a shame Monk Tunk went to jail.
Yeah, respectfully, I have to disagree with that.
Okay.
Because I think that taking accountability and responsibility is the highest form of manhood. So when you tell on somebody else or you put somebody else in a situation, I can't respect that.
Well, I understand
You
it.
know what I'm saying?
And I guess what I'm saying is I've never walked in their shoes.
Right.
So we'll talk about Thug taking a plea later.
Right.
But I've never walked in their shoes. So I am not going to criticize someone for something when I haven't been there and I don't know what I would do in that situation.
No. But it's at the detriment of your buddy.
It is.
See, that's the thing.
I get
This
it.
is what you got to keep in mind. Like, I get it, right? Self-preservation kick in, but in the event, I got to look at that dude that took me on them jets.
Yeah.
That dude that took me across the world. I can't sign this paper and nail him to the cross, even participate in nailing him to the cross.
There were people that made that choice,
That's
right?
what I'm saying.
There were people that turned that away.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say YSL's a gang. I'm
Yes.
not going to do all that stuff. And they
Right.
stayed in the jail. There are people that did that.
Right.
So I have
And-
a great degree of respect for them.
Yes.
What I'm saying is, personally, I give people grace,
Yes.
and I'm not going to give them a hard time for doing
Right.
what they did. They got families. I get it. And now I know Thug's got a family too.
Yeah.
Thug's got kids. Thug's got people.
And you
to
got to
support.
remember, he's the one who could have distanced himself from all of this.
He could have.
He could have said, "You know what? I'm not doing none of this no more because I can't chaperone you guys all day.
I know.
So I'm gonna keep you dudes away from me. Instead, I'm gonna have you around when I can't have you around.
Yeah.
I can't applaud you nailing him to the cross. Now, what I can
No, I don't
say,
applaud it. I don't
right,
applaud it. Let's be clear.
right now, what I can say is I get self-preservation kick in, and I also understand that is a part of the game. People are gonna take those pleas. People are gonna snitch. This is part of it, and I think they caught Thug at a young age before he had went through anything like that.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
he didn't really. I don't know if Thug really has ever seen it happen like that, that close. Like, oh, these that was just with them went left. You know what I'm saying? Like, whoa, what's happening? I'm telling you, man. I would have nightmares if they would walk my homeboys in a fucking courtroom and put them on a stand.
I mean, I get it. I guess I'm just going to be slow to criticize someone when I don't know their situation. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'll applaud people all the time for stuff, but I'm always going to be a little slow to criticize.
Yeah.
I hope. That's my goal.
So let me ask you this: what is the difference between Young Thug's plea and Gunna's plea?
Well, there's some big differences there, right? So Gunna pleads out right away, right? He doesn't even get into the trial part of the thing. The other thing is Gunna signs off on all this bullshit that the state, right? The state wants to put out. Now, maybe he didn't sign off on all of it, but I think he signed off on YSL as a gang,
Yes,
and all this other crap, right? When they asked Jeffrey to do that, Jeffrey pushed back, right? Jeffrey, he could have taken a negotiated plea, and they wanted him to sign off on all these damn lies, right? Because that's all they care about.
Yeah.
They don't care about the truth.
Yes.
They care about getting a victory.
yes.
So they wanted him to sign off on all that stuff. Jeffrey didn't do it. And what happens to Jeffrey by not doing that? What happens to Thug by not doing that? Because he wouldn't sign off on all their little things, YSL as a gang and all this other business, he had to take that non-negotiated plea, right? The blind plea. He had to risk going to prison. He risked going to prison partially so he wouldn't have to sign off on all that stuff that would have hurt the other guys.
But like bro was just saying, right? There's a scenario where you're still taking a risk when you're doing this blind plea. Why not take the risk alongside Brian Steele, wait it out a couple of more months? Because we also have to examine the level of scrutiny Gunna has got, right? Gunna has gotten a certain level of scrutiny for pleading out in the same way that some people is saying that looks like Thug has now, for lack of a better term, played out in the same way. But like you said, there's some differences as it pertains to what was agreed on and what was actually admitted to.
I mean, there are those differences like I talked about, and I'm going to go back to the same thing that I said earlier. I'm just not going to criticize Gunna for doing what he did. I understand everybody is. Y'all's community can do it if you want to. I'm just not going to do it. I'm not going to do it because I'm not in that situation. So Gunna did whatever he chose, thought he had to do. Thug did what he had to do. I wish Jeffrey would have stuck it out till the end. Gone through it. But
Go ahead.
he had to make those decisions for himself.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to criticize him for it. The other thing is, I mean, just honestly, it's hard for me to criticize a guy that I sat by for 2 years.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
What would that say about me?
Well, I mean, the truth is never disrespect. And I know Thug come from my walk of life, so he understands that, right? The truth is never disrespect.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's why when I stand out on the hill, I'm from a neighborhood. I'm from a town. If I wasn't who I said I was, and dudes brought that to the light, that could not ever be disrespectful.
Yeah.
Right? Because I ain't got no business acting like something that I'm not. I don't play this fugazi game with nobody.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
What it is what we gonna address it as. And that's just how it is, cut and dry.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this.
Sure.
From a lawyer's perspective, from a legal perspective,
Yeah.
is there any difference between Thug's plea and Gunna's plea? Not because you sat next to him 2 years. Is there a scenario where you as a lawyer say those two are the same things? And the reason I ask this is because Gunna's lawyer is positioning it that way. He's saying basically, yo, y'all are mad at Thug. I'm sorry, y'all are mad at Gunna when Thug is kind of in the same scenario. To that, what do you say?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I totally understand the position that Gunna's lawyer is taking. I mean, there are differences, but they're fine differences, right? And those are kind of the differences that I brought up.
Right.
Which is that the plea that Gunna took said some things in it that Jeffrey's plea did not say.
Yes.
And that's, I guess, the main difference between the two.
Right.
I mean, if there's a difference in the pleas, it's that.
Yeah.
But I get, and I guess it's Steve Sadow that's Gunna's lawyer, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
I
get what Steve's saying, because you guys are criticizing Gunna for pleading out and Thug pled out. And that's pretty much, I totally get that position of his. I understand it. There were just a few differences between them, but there were some differences.
And here's another difference that, on Thug's side is that, Thug was noted as the king of this. So there's really no one to tell on above him, right?
No, there's no one to tell on.
It's who do I tell on if I'm Thug? Like, who do I tell on?
Yeah.
There's no one to tell on, but all of these dudes can kind of implicate me of being some kind of head of something, but I have no one to really
Well, the
tell
other
on.
thing is, I don't think Thug really had the opportunity to plea out early. I don't think the state even gave him that choice.
They wanted to nail him to the cross.
They wanted Thug.
Yeah.
The target was Thug.
Yeah.
And they would do anything to get Thug. The target was on his back.
Right.
Wasn't on Gunna's back. I don't know why Gunna was, honestly, I don't know why Gunna was wrapped up in all this anyway.
Yeah. He had charge.
They had nothing.
Really to get him to cooperate. That's why they went and got him. They went and got him. They probably looked at his record, his shit, and was like, if we get him, he'll probably at least give us some information.
But
We won't got much on him.
He didn't cooperate at all. I mean,
He didn't cooperate at all?
No, he signed what he had to sign to get the hell out of there, but he didn't cooperate. He didn't testify. None of that happened with Gunna. I didn't think people should have been giving Gunna hell, and I still don't.
So as the defense team over there for Yak Gotti, you don't see an issue with Gunna saying that this is a game?
I'm not happy that he said it, but you know what? I can explain that to the jury. And his lawyer knows I can explain that to the jury. And we did over and over again. Max and I, everybody, we all explained it to the jury.
Yeah.
And you know what? The jury understood. So what Gunna did didn't hurt us at all. Didn't hurt us at all.
Wow. That's a heavy statement.
It's true.
Yeah.
I'm saying it because it's true.
Right.
He didn't hurt us.
And you played in between the whistles, so you know. You know?
I was there.
Yeah, you were there.
Look, that entire trial, that 2-year trial, nothing Gunna said ever came up before the jury. So how can his plea have hurt me?
Wow.
Have hurt Yak?
Yeah.
It didn't.
So do you think Thug should
It helped
not
their
be
public opinion.
Yeah.
They spun it.
right?
Right?
Do you think Thug should not be mad at Gunna?
Oh, I'm not going to tell anyone how they should feel.
Okay. I mean, well, I guess
I'm
that is a
not.
heavy question. Yeah.
I'm not.
But I mean, I'm wondering if. All right. Well.
I'm just not.
Yeah.
I mean, you may not like that answer, but that's where I'm going to
right.
stay.
Yeah. No, I
I'm not going to
respect it.
tell anyone how to feel about anything else.
Right. I respect it.
That's an age thing, man. I've learned that. I don't get involved, man.
Yeah.
You two want to go get divorced? I'm not taking sides.
Right. How much longer are you gonna practice law?
Probably 15 more years.
15 more. Yeah.
What? Am I that old? Look at this.
You've been doing it 30. That's 45 years.
I started I got my bar license in 98, and I was doing it while in law school in 96. Not quite 30 yet. That's okay.
Yeah.
I love it.
You enjoy it. That's
I
what
love
you
it.
want to do. Something you enjoy for the rest of your life.
Shoot, what else would I do?
Right.
I mean, I do this because I like it.
Facts.
I also got a 9-year-old. So that helps too.
For that. You got a 9-year-old? What kind of boy you get? Boy, you still getting busy out there. Cialis and Viagra and all that going on.
Shut your mouth.
Let's get back to Woody. So
Yeah.
Did you see a difference between the way Woody handled you and your side versus how we handled the prosecution?
You know, I want to say I did, but there's a reason for it. And he's told me the reason for it. He's gone public and explained the reason for it. When he's in that courtroom, the prosecutors did not treat him with respect at all. Not at all. Not good morning, not anything like that. And he said he'd see us in the hallway, right? Because you're all intermingled. Good morning, how are you doing? You know, we treated him like who he was, a human being.
Yes.
And the prosecutors never did that. They never saw a human being. The prosecutors get up there and talk about how much they care for the community, all this, in this trial,
right,
and all that other stuff. And you watch how they treated their own witnesses, and you tell me those are people that are concerned for the community. I tried to treat every witness with dignity and respect.
Yes.
And I think with Woody, I mean, I think he'd have told the truth regardless, but if you saw a difference in the way he treated us, I think that's because we treated him differently than the prosecution did.
What were you thinking? How many days did the prosecution deal with Woody before they passed him over? Do you remember?
That's a tough one. I'm going to say it was maybe a week or so.
It was just a week? I thought it was longer than that.
Well, you know, the problem is he came on, and then the judge was recused.
Yeah.
So 3 or 4 days of his testimony, we got completely thrown out, and then he had to redo it all again.
You're right.
So it depends on how you're counting.
Right.
I don't count any of the initial stuff because it was all thrown out. I think the amount of stuff that stayed in was maybe about a week or so.
Right.
It could have actually may have been longer because they were playing all those interview tapes.
That's what I'm saying.
So maybe he was up there 2 or 3 weeks.
And that's what I want to get to. At what point did you guys start to notice? Oh, they're impeaching. They're impeaching their own witness now.
They were always impeaching their own witnesses.
What's that about? Why would they do that?
They believed that they were lying on the stand. Here's the whole thing. They wanted to play that interview tape of Lil Woody.
Right.
That's what they wanted.
Yeah.
And they wanted to do that with all the interview tapes. They wanted to play.
So
those
that was strategy too.
It was their strategy. They put them up there, and if they lie or not lie, if they don't tell them, if they don't say what they want to say,
or the same
they don't say the same story, then to the prosecutor, fine, that's great. We're going to play that videotape.
So I mean, that seems like a counterintuitive approach. If you're saying, "Hey, I want you to believe this person, but then I'm going to tell you this person is lying, and that this is what."
Well, you know, I think the initial approach is, and by the way, the prosecutors knew this would happen, but whatever. I think their initial approach was, we're going to put them up there. If they say what we want them to say, cool, we're good. If they don't say what we want them to say, we're going to play the interviews, and then we get in what we want anyway. So I think, I don't want to get in their heads, but I think they thought win-win. Either way, we're golden. But that's not the way it worked, because the best at explaining it was Woody. When he would say, I was finessing the police, right? That was his big thing. I'm finessing the police. And he explained his strategy.
Yeah.
Like, he explained what he was doing.
Yeah.
He was like, I give them some grains of truth.
Yes.
Some grains of truth. So if they want to go check that out, you know, they can see that, and that backs my story up a little bit. So I'd sprinkle in a little bit of truth with a bunch of these lies. I'd tell them what they wanted to hear.
Yeah.
What do they want to hear? They want to hear thugs involved in all this. They want the big fish. That's what they want. So I give them what they want. Why? Because I don't want to wear that blue jumpsuit. I don't want to wear that Rice Street stuff.
Yeah. So after let's go back to they took him to jail because he pled the fifth. He came back with a different attitude. He came back, basically started to answer some questions.
Sure.
It wasn't the, run around he was giving them.
Yeah.
Did that alert y'all about that secret meeting, or what alerted y'all? I mean, what?
The only reason we knew about the secret meeting is that somebody tipped us off that the meeting took place. And we learned about, and then we had a lunch meeting with the person that tipped us off, and we being myself and Max Shart and Brian Steele, and who was the fourth one that was in there?
Caleb Bumpus?
Maybe Keith. I think Keith may have been the fourth defense attorney. So we got in there.
Keith a bad boy too. Salute Keith.
He is my role model for how I want to cross-examine people.
For sure, bro.
That man is smooth.
Oh man,
charismatic.
hey, he's super.
Jury is fixated on him when he's crossing. He is the guy, man.
He one of them ones.
He is the guy.
For sure.
So anyway, we learned about all that happened during lunch.
Right.
And that's when Brian, I think, volunteered basically to be the one to approach Judge Glanville.
Yeah.
And say, what the heck?
And I so respected how Brian Steele, and this is why I respect lawyers, right? Because it's always mental gymnastics and mental jujitsu.
Mm-hmm.
It's always, mind tricks, right? So when Brian Steele got up and he spoke to Glanville about it, it was interesting because you hear the public say that it's crazy that we're on a RICO trial and the judge is trying to out a snitch. He's not even allowing for them to bring information to him that is clearly wrong despite who gave it to you. Something happened that was not good, bro, so you should just handle it that way.
Yeah.
But I respected the fact that Brian Steele stayed on offense. While Glanville was trying to get him to go on defense like he done something wrong, he stayed on offense. And that technique, I said, oh, that was deep.
Yeah. He is, Brian Steele is just the master, right? And so Judge Glanville kept wanting to try to change the subject. Who told you? Who told you? Who told you?
This is important.
And Brian Steele is like, that's not the issue.
Exactly.
Who told me is like, who told you I stole the cookies from the cookie jar?
Exactly.
That's not the issue.
Yes.
The issue is, let's talk about what happened. Let's talk about the substance. Because you, Judge Glanville, you should have told us about that meeting.
Yes.
Because that's the truth.
Right. So
where
for
I
the
learned
people,
of it doesn't matter.
Right. So for the people who do not know, explain to them this meeting we're talking about and how it intertwined or affected the case.
What happened was after Lil Woody spent the weekend in DeKalb County Jail, they brought him back. We were supposed to start court at 9 or 9:30. Court didn't start till 11 or 11:30. We didn't really question it because court's always starting late because he's the chief judge. He's got stuff he has to do. For whatever reason, we were always starting late, so we didn't think that much of it. We start late. He takes a stand. We learn, right? Here's a meeting. Who's at the meeting that morning? There's a meeting that morning. Chief Judge Glanville's in the meeting. Simone Hilton is in the meeting. Kenneth Copeland is in the meeting. Deputies are in the meeting. An investigator or two is in the meeting. And what's that meeting about? That meeting is about coercing Kenneth Copeland to testify.
Via immunity, right?
Well, they'd given him immunity, so he actually was required by law to testify. But then Judge Glanville is up there going, look, if you don't testify, I'm going to keep you locked up. And I'm not just going to keep you locked up till the end of this trial. There's 14 more people to try. Actually, more than that. 14 more people to try. And I'm going to keep you locked up till they're tried as well, which, by the way, is not the law. That's coercion right there.
Wow.
And he is not allowed to do that. The other thing is, if you there are certain times you can have this ex parte meeting, a meeting without both sides there, but that wasn't one of them. But if you have one, you're required to tell the other side, hey, you had this meeting. He never told us that meeting took place. There was so much wrong there.
Yeah.
And I really get into it when I filed my motion to disqualify.
Yeah, that you
and
were
went
the
to
one that
Supreme
filed
Court.
it. Yeah.
Several of us filed it. I was the one that went to Judge Glanville. That was a Monday that happened. I went to him on Wednesday. And actually, I was a little nervous about this, but I had to go to him in court and give him the paper. And say, in person.
I'm serving.
In person,
this is
basically
what's
serving.
going on. Yeah.
I had to go up to him and say, Judge, I'm serving, I'm presenting you with this motion to disqualify. And certain things have to happen when that happens. If I meet certain criteria, he has to kick it out to another judge to decide. And he didn't do that. That's why he eventually was off the case.
Yeah, see, we unpack it. This is a lot to unpack.
I know it is. I'm
this
sorry.
This is a lot to unpack. So, wow. So, okay, back up. So Woody is coerced into testifying by telling him basically how to testify because they were clearly not happy with the way he was handling the prosecution.
Yeah, and they did in a way tell him how to testify.
Yeah.
So for example, they told him, and I'm generalizing, but they basically told him, you get up there and say whatever you want, but if you say that you are responsible for the death of Donovan Thomas, we're going to go after you for perjury. We're going after you for everything. Say whatever you want, but don't say that.
Imagine that.
Can you imagine? I can't imagine. The whole thing was unimaginable. I mean, I wish there would have been a camera looking at myself, Keith, Brian, and Max, because I've been doing this 30 years. I never even heard anything like what happened that morning in Judge Glanville's chambers.
So when you take this to the Supreme Court,
Yeah.
do you go and tell Brian Steele? Do you guys have a conversation like, hey, I'm about to try to recuse this guy or get him off of the trial at this point? It's been too much that's going on. Or how does that happen?